Hi, I'm J.John. Welcome to Facing the Canon, and I'm delighted today to be interviewing my friend Tim Saiet. Hi, Tim.
Hi, J.John. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. Well, I want, the viewers to get to know you a little bit.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about your journey in life. You used to be a commando in the Marines.
I did. When I was 17, I joined the Royal Marines and stayed in there for just about 6 years. Travelled all over Norway, mountain and Arctic warfare. I was up at 4-5 Commando in Scotland, training to live and fight the Russians in the 80s. A million men on the border of Murmansk and 2,000 of us. So if the Russians had come over, I probably would have dug a hole and hidden.
My word.
But yeah, so that was our job.
So that was hard? Was it? It
was very cold.
Tough?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, the life of a Royal Marine is I was told that when you pass out of training, you're in the 1% of fitness in the country. So you've got to maintain that fitness day in and day out. And it's quite a battle to try and stay that fit, but when you go on exercise you realise why, carrying heavy kit. So but it's a tough job. There's a lot of masculinity and chest banging in there, which is if you can put up with that, it's a great life.
So you signed up for how many years?
I signed up for 3 years, but you can give 18 months notice after that. So you have to do a minimum of 3, and then you give 18 months notice and you can get out after 18 months.
Right. So what did you do after that?
Well, because of my experience in skiing, I decided that I wanted to sort of... Because in the Marines I was training instructors how to live and fight and train the men. So we used to go out to a place called Rjukan in Norway and train a month before deployment and a month after deployment and train military ski instructors. So it seemed an obvious progression to get out and get into the ski industry. I did my first season in Aviemore. I did 5 seasons in the Marines and then 9 seasons as a professional skier when I got out the Royal Marines.
Wow.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun, a bit of an adventure.
An adventure, but it's a bit nomadic. You start thinking, where am I going? And you start living for the seasons a little.
Oh.
If the snow's not good, it can affect everything. I think I was asking myself, do I want to do this all my life, living such a nomadic lifestyle? Especially if you're not a local Austrian or local Frenchman, you are an invited guest for the winter, and then they like it when you shove off. So.
My word. I went skiing once, Tim.
Did you?
Yeah, and I was doing quite well on the nursery slopes.
Yeah.
And getting more confidence.
Yeah.
And then this 4-year-old little kid that was absolutely amazing just stopped in front of me. So I tried to avoid this little kid and then twisted my knee.
Did you? Oh,
and I heard it go like this. Yeah. And it kind of didn't recover for a good year.
Yeah,
so
it's one of those things. It's a risk, isn't it?
I've lost my
nowadays?
confidence now. Yeah, there we are.
That's such a shame, because it's a great holiday to have.
Well, what did you do after that?
Well, I was, during the time in my summer period, I was living in Jersey, and I banged into an ex-Royal Marine who was a hobbyist. He used to do magic and card tricks. And he said to me, look, because I did like mathematical tricks, and I was very proud of my mathematical tricks. I've been doing them for years. I had a collection, and I was showing them to him. And he said to me, that's absolute rubbish. You need to be doing sleight of hand with skill. So he showed me, and it was like a massive eye-opener for me to see someone with skill.
Yes.
So I pleaded with this guy to teach me all he knew. And then when he taught me all he knew, he said, look, I need to send you to one of the best in the world. And he sent me to a guy called Steve Johnson, who lived in Jersey. And Steve basically told me to get lost for 3 months. He didn't want to speak to me, he didn't want to talk to me, and I pleaded with him. And he said, you can come with me, you've got to iron my shirts, polish my shoes and carry my case.
Yes.
And he tormented me and gave me a hard time for about 2 years. And basically he taught me everything he knew. And then he said to me, if you want to get better, you need to go to America. So I worked a season in Aspen in Colorado. And at the time, I'd been accepted for the British telemark ski team, which was a new type of skiing at the moment. They're looking at it at the moment, possibly for the Olympics.
Yes.
But I was one of the founders of racing in the country for that. And I was training in Aspen with some of the US ski team out there and doing magic and learning magic with some of the very good guys. And then I moved to Los Angeles and performed at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which is the mecca for magicians.
Right.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Wow. Now tell us, how does your journey of faith fit into the Marines, and then post and Marine time, and your season of doing magic? When did you discover faith?
I think that I didn't grow up in one of those Christian families. I sometimes wish I did. And then I sometimes think, well, I'm glad I didn't, because it gives me value to my testimony that I've had some sort of background. But I was one of those boys that went to Boys Brigade and absolutely loved it. What was interesting was they used to give us Sunday school, but I loved being in the main church and hearing the pastor preach. Even as a little boy, I still loved listening to this guy speak. It was a Methodist church in the Wirral. And that was about it. I didn't have any more contact with the Christian faith. I joined the Royal Marines. I used to only go to church at weddings. There was a lot of weddings we went to in uniform, or I'd go at Remembrance Day. But I used to write on my dog tags C.V. And a lot of the guys used to have their blood group if they got shot on their arm, and C.V. on there, because you had to have your blood group and your religion. So all of us thought we were C of E, yet absolutely none of us had a clue what C of E meant. But there was something burning inside of me, because I'd been in about 2 weeks, and they had this massive Christmas party at Royal Marine Commando Training Centre down in Devon. And the sergeant says we needed a Royal Marine recruit to volunteer to read out at the carol service. So I just put my hand up. It's so unlike me to do it. And I ended up getting up and reading in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. But on the Monday, the sergeant said, "Who was that idiot that got up and spoke at the carol service?" And I said, "It was me." And they had this massive water tank which was frozen over. And he said, "I'm going to teach you for doing volunteering." He said, "Get in that tank and tell me how thin the ice is in the middle." I said, "But I know how thin the ice is, Sergeant." He says, "You don't know till you're under it. Now get out there." So I got out and got absolutely soaked, freezing cold.
Freezing cold.
Freezing cold. But something inside me actually felt, I did the right thing. And that was like I'd been punished for doing some good.
Yes.
And there was like a rejoicing. I didn't know what it was at the time, but didn't get involved with church at all, and then lived the showbiz lifestyle. I was partying, drinking hard, spending a lot of money, earning a lot of money. At the time, I became the magician for Arsenal Football Club.
Yes.
I did 14 or 15 full seasons for them. Then I was Warner Brothers and international, well, different movie companies. I was their magician.
Right.
And then
like their resident magician for events?
They'd have a movie premiere. And rather than do their parties, they would book me to do the movie premiere.
Do those, yeah.
And we would do a deal that I could do the VIP party, because the premiere is not the one to go to. It's the party after.
Yes.
I mean, the premiere is great, but the party is fantastic. So I said, look, I won't charge you if I can get in, bring friends to the premiere and do the party after. And it was fantastic. And then I got in with Bernie Ecclestone's company, called me and asked me if I'd do the Paddock Club at Formula One, and then I got involved with McLaren and Williams and did magic for them. So I was doing magic in all different and amazing places. And I got my big break from Paul Robinson from Neighbours, who I believe is still on it at the moment. And I was doing a charity event for Sticky Fingers, which was Bill Wyman's new restaurant in London.
Yes.
And they had all the neighbours, a lot of the Neighbours cast and EastEnders cast, and there was a woman there who managed all these people. So Paul Robinson, I performed some tricks, and he said to this woman, there was 3 magicians, and he said, "You need to sign this guy up." She said, "I don't work with magicians, you know." And he said, "Look, you need to sign him up." So she said, would you like to come on board?" So they took me on. I went from nothing to going to movie premieres on the arms of some of the girls, and
Yes.
I lived with a guy of Home and Away. But a turning point for me was he was on about £10,000 a week in 1994 or 5, and he would come home crying. We lived together, and I would say to him, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "I don't know. There's a hole. There's something missing." And I said to him, "You've ruined it for me. I wanted to be famous and have lots of money and be on TV. You're famous, you're on TV, you've got lots of money." And I said, "And you're crying. If you're crying, what chance have I got?"
Sure.
So it was like the bubble burst. So I started thinking, well, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? And I carried on. And then one day I thought I need to start... I was driving past churches and thinking, I haven't got a clue what these mean, Methodist, Baptist. And someone asked me questions and I felt really stupid.
Yes.
So I thought I need to do a course on it, because in the forces you do a beginner, intermediate and advanced. So I'm going to do a beginner course. So I knocked on a church in Windsor. It was the perfect church. They had an ex-Marine chaplain who was attached to the church.
Well, out of the blue, you just knocked on this church
door.
And said...
Vicar's dream, you know. I said, "Hi, I had a Mercedes at the time. I was earning about £100,000 a year." And I said to the guy, I said, "Look, yeah, I'm a single fella. Have you got any courses on God? I've done courses in the Marines,
Yes.
I've done courses on skiing, I've done courses in magic. Have you got any courses on God?"
Did he laugh?
And he said, yes. He was delighted. He said, "We've got one tonight called the Alpha Course." I said, "How much is it?" He said, "It's free." I said, "Oh, do you get a meal?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm a bachelor. I don't like cooking." He said, "You get a meal?" I said, "Are there any chicks?" And he said, "There's loads of lovely women. You'll love it."
Yes.
So when I turned up, it was full of all these old grannies, you know. And I thought, oh, he's lied to me. But actually, they were amazing.
Yes.
You know? And I went on it every week. I had every argument in the book. And I thought they're really pathetic and weak, because no one would argue with me, because I like debating. But what they were doing was letting me have my say. And then we watched a video of this church called Holy Trinity Brompton in London. And I saw all these lovely girls on it. I thought, I'll go there.
Yes.
So, you know, I was in the world, and that's what I was thinking. And I arrived there, and everyone looked really happy going in. And I thought, oh, OK, I'll go in. And then when I went in, they were very, very happy and positive. And I thought, oh, they're a bit like they are at a corporate trade show when they're trying to sell you something.
Right.
So maybe they're trying to sell me something, so I'll just be careful. And then when I went in, as soon as they started, I realised it wasn't like a normal organ. They had this full band singing. And there was this big picture of Jesus in the back, and they had all their arms in the air. And I thought, these guys, they really mean this stuff. And then I started crying. So I thought they've drugged the water or they've drugged the tea. I thought, you know, there's something not right here, because I've got nothing to cry for. I'm very happy. Cried through the service, left. I thought, I'll go back next week, but I won't drink anything. Anyway, I went back the following week, cried again through the whole service. And I just kept feeling this like aching and pain and longing in my heart to go back. And it was like I thought, this is a place I need to be. Yes. I don't know why, but I need to be here. And I continued and did the Alpha course again at Holy Trinity Brompton. My life has never been the same since. It's been absolutely unbelievable. It's not been easy.
No.
But I found myself. I've dealt with some of the stuff in the past that held me back, pains and aches, heartache. I've answered a lot of questions. I've got more questions.
Yes.
I've never been so high. Sometimes I've never been so low when I see other people suffering. But my own family and friends thought I'd gone mad. They thought I'd joined the Moonies. Literally, I had people at the Magic Circle where I was a member avoiding me, thinking I'd gone mad.
That you'd become a religious nut or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
But actually, what's funny with my friends in the Marines said, "Mate, we're absolutely delighted for you. Go for it. One of our own has joined the church." And
yes.
They loved it. I got all the support from them.
You then started working for Alpha. How did that happen? Well,
it was just a progression, really. They started saying to me, would you do the odd speaking at events, doing some illustrations with your... They saw I had a skill set.
Sure.
And then they realised I was used to communicating, so what a natural thing. They also... I started playing guitar and said, well, we're short of people. But the only platform I had that was open at the time was in the prisons. So I sort of cut my teeth on those poor fellas and ladies in the prisons.
Yes.
But actually, they're very patient and very kind, because you can make all the mistakes you want and they just don't care.
Yes.
They're so glad that you've gone in. And it was a real place of grace. And so I sort of went in there and got more and more involved. And then eventually I was thinking about being ordained. That sort of was a question that came up.
Right.
And they offered me a job to run Alpha for Forces with another guy at Holy Trinity Brompton, which was a dream job for me at the time, because I loved that church. My heart was there. I was sort of, you know, my faith was born there. And
that was to work with Paul Cowley.
That was to work with Paul Cowley.
Who was on Newsnight the other day.
Who was on Newsnight on the TV.
Yes.
He did a fantastic job.
That's right.
And Paul has been a friend and an amazing mentor for me. You know, he's bared with the ups and downs. He's bared with the, you know, the growing. Because when you come from a forces background, you know, you can have the greatest heart in the world, but then sometimes this inappropriate comment will come out because your forces, you know, every other word is a swear word for half of those guys. And, you know, you try and bury it and then suddenly it'll come out and Paul will go, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, sure. You know, I know. Because it was like that for him in the beginning, and then slowly it just goes away and fades away. But he understands the forces mentality. He was the perfect person for me to work for.
You then got ordained in the Church of England.
I did. I went to study in Oxford at Wycliffe Hall.
So you've been a reverend for how many years?
Yes, about 2.5 years nearly. I got ordained at St Paul's Cathedral, and then a guy called Mark Mellish, who's a vicar at St Paul's in Ealing, offered me a job. Very exciting, and I went to work for St Paul's running the men's ministry and evangelism for Mark at the church.
And one of the things I know you've been trying to do is communicate Christianity using your talents and your skills from all those years of practicing illusion.
Yes.
So now, what would you say to people who might object to the use of the word magic or illusion?
Well, I think they're right to question anything which might have, you know, some mystery about it. It's good for us to question. My first thoughts are, after doing some research and looking at it, is I'm using a skill, and my hope is that I'm honouring God by using a skill. But if you look in the dictionary, the word magic talks about the occult, but it also talks about people that use skill to illustrate and perform.
Yes.
One of the things Jesus did is he could have done miracles everywhere he went, but he didn't. Sometimes he did a miracle, sometimes he told a story, and sometimes he taught. And he used to know what to do at certain times. So sometimes I teach, sometimes I do illustrations using my background, which I glorify God in every way for, and I make it very clear these are just tricks. And sometimes I pray for God to heal people. So Jesus says, be like me and do what I do, and basically I play the hand I've been given.
Yes.
And do what I can. You know, I try and encourage people to use their gifts more. And I've tried to lay it down many times, but I feel the Lord saying to me, I want you to use it, but be very clear why you're doing it, and let people know, reassure them really, that it's just tricks, it's just skill. Well,
could you show us a few of your little illusions now?
I'd like to do a little effect for you to talk about the feeling you get when you encounter God. There's a sense of the supernatural or wonder. What I try and do is appeal to people's wonder to get them to get in touch with that feeling of God's awesomeness. So I'd like to illustrate that for you.
Okay.
I got one of these, which is a classic sick bag. I didn't actually take these off a plane.
Right.
I bought these. So I want you to just have a little look at that.
Yes.
You've seen one of those before?
I have, a few times.
And I've got a little cup here, which I will place onto the table.
Okay.
There.
Although I've never used one of these before.
I've never used one of these.
But occasionally I've taken it out just in case.
Yeah, I did see a YouTube clip of a poor girl on a flight with one of those, but it went upside down. It was awful.
Oh dear, okay, let's not go there.
Anyway, so I got some milk here.
Yes.
And I'm going to place the milk inside the bag. Not all of the milk, because I don't want to fill the bag up.
Okay.
Right? So let's just do this very, very slowly as we pour that in, like so. I just don't want it to go in too far. There. that should about do it there.
Okay.
Just going to pour the remainder into there so you can see it's going in.
Right.
Okay, and we'll put that here. Now the idea is, most entertainers would try and do something, either make the bag disappear or try and change the milk into something. Wouldn't it be good if I could change into something like cheese?
That would be very good.
Wouldn't it be even more amazing if I showed you that the milk had absolutely disappeared?
Now, actually, that is very good, because I did see you pour it in.
You did see me pour it in, that's true. So
that's an illusion.
That's an illusion. So the idea is that you saw something going in, you saw something happening, but what you saw wasn't exactly what happened. Think about what you believe. Think and question about the things you see. Because the greatest thing that we can do in the Christian faith is get people to ask questions.
Go on, do us another illusion.
You want another one?
Okay. Just one more.
Here's an illustration of the heart. And you can imagine that this is my first relationship. I was actually on a date, my first date. This is true. I was 12 years old. She never turned up. 2 hours I was waiting on the corner. I was so embarrassed I couldn't tell my dad when I got back, but he found out eventually anyway. But it still left a little scar on my heart. And another time was when I got out the forces. I had a little job and I worked very, very hard, but my heart wasn't in it. And I did quite well, so they ended up not needing me, sacked me. And it was my first real sense of injustice.
And rejection.
And rejection. Many times. So these were broken relationships that I had so much hope for in the beginning. And I could go on and on. I mean, you know what I mean. You know the story. We meet people all the time. And what people tend to do is they tend to take these sort of pieces to the doctor. And they say, look, doc, you know, I'm not feeling well. I'm depressed. I'm down. But it's probably because they've got a lot of brokenness in their heart. And the doctor says, well, I'll give you tablets. And all the tablets do are numb it up. They numb the emotions. So what I did is when I went to these people like the doctor, I realised that I wasn't getting anywhere. And I resolved just to seal my heart and just put it in like a box. And I lived for a few years with a really hard heart. I was hard-hearted. And then I realised that what Jesus does is he comes upon you in your heart. He lives within your heart. And then there's this healing journey. Some of it you know about, and some of it you don't know about. It happens unconsciously. Your memories start getting healed. The disappointments, the sting of them doesn't seem to hurt so much. The regrets go. And he takes them away. And that you suddenly feel less burdened, and you feel like you've got new life. And bit by bit, what happens is your heart gets slowly and completely restored for that. And that's a little illustration I use for the heart.
How did you do that? I mean, you're obviously
You can't keep asking me those questions.
You're very skillful and talented. And I mean, the power of those three illusions is quite potent. But for a lot of us, though, Tim, you know, we don't have your skills, and we wish we could do it. And what would you say to us who, you know, we long to be able to articulate what you've just articulated, but we don't have these skills?
Can I share a couple of things then on that? First of all, I believe everybody has an evangelist in them. See, you can talk to anyone you like, and all you have to do is get someone they like, say, tell me how you became a Christian, and they light up, and they can't wait to tell their story.
Yes.
So I say to everybody who I know, say, look, everybody should have a 45-second, 2-minute or 4-minute testimony. A 45-second would be, how was life before God? What happened, and how is life now? And then that would be at a bus stop. Anybody can do that. You rehearse what was life like without Jesus, what happened, what's it like now. And then the 4-minute one, I was selling a car once, and I had these two guys coming to get a curry with me. And I said, the guys coming to pick up the car were counting the money. This is a 4-minute testimony. They said, well, how's that? I said, watch this. So he came in. So I said, so what do you do for a living? And he said, and I said, I bet you don't know what I do for a living. He said, what do you do? And I told him. I said, I'm a vicar. Well, a curate. Because they don't know curate, many people. Of course. So, and I knew he'd ask me. So I was just counting away. He said, what made you do that then? And I sort of gave my friends a little wink. I said, the 4 minutes. Because you can't go anywhere because I was counting his money, you know. So I stopped counting the money. I shared my testimony and I started counting the money. And it's just knowing where people are and just sharing your journey. It's not always, it's the Holy Spirit's job to bring them to faith. So everyone, I think, should have their own small testimony of what Jesus has done. And if they don't think their testimony is very powerful, don't worry about it. Leave that to the hearer and practice it, and also have 45 minutes of someone else's testimony that you know has got a powerful testimony. But here's something really helpful that people can do. I say, I've got here a million, this is £1 million note. And you could very easily take a £10 note out or a £20 note if you're with some friends.
Yes.
And you could say, what's the, you know, we would love £1 million or $1 million, but you could say to them, look, what's the $1 million question? And the $1 million question is, where have we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going? I think they are the big important questions of life. Probably another question, big one, would be, is there a God and is he for us?
Absolutely.
Is he for us?
Absolutely.
But certainly, why are we here? Now, why are we here? We can go on and talk about that, but that's a great question to open a conversation. And the next thing you can do is you can talk to them about your money, saying, look, you could write on a piece of paper and say, this money here, I've just written £10, but it doesn't mean anything. But this is real money. What gives it its currency is the fact that the government backs it. And that's what I feel about Jesus. When I have a life with him, he backs me. Now, I do an extra bit. Would you like to see it?
Go on then.
OK, you've got to hold this. You've got to hold that.
Right.
Right, I'm going to just give this a little fold.
Yes.
And change that right in front of your eyes.
OK.
To a 20.
How did you do that?
Now, watch carefully.
OK.
That was a completely different note.
Yeah, because the other one was counterfeit.
No, well, this is actually counterfeit, you see.
That's counterfeit.
Yeah, see, it doesn't exist at all. It's completely gone. You see, what I always say to people is, if someone offers you a way out, a way of hope, and it's not Jesus, question it. Find out if it's counterfeit. Find out if it's real. Because from my experience, the only thing that offers a real transformational change in anyone's life is the Christian faith. See, we're the only faith that promises that you'll know where you go when you die. Yeah, in the other faith, they say, well, you'll have to find out when you get there.
Yes.
I'd rather not know when I get there. I'd like to know now.
I know. If we are followers of Jesus, we're all witnesses, and we need to learn how we can convey and communicate that message. But then some of us in the church are called evangelists, and both Tim and myself, we are evangelists, endeavouring to proclaim it as best as we can with the skills and talents that God has given us. And we want to encourage you to do the same as well. But as you can see, Tim does have an amazing talent and creativity. And if you would like to invite Tim to your church or to your conference, then please email him at tim.saiet@philotrust.com. And I know that he will prayerfully consider it. Tim, it's been a joy to talk to you, and it's been, it's always fascinating seeing the illusions.
Great to see
and
you.
we hope that you'll just keep being magical in the way that you communicate the greatest news that's available to people in the world today.